Dear friends, let us begin the Dhamma portion of this program with a bit of meditation. I think for the first part of the meditation, let's just try to build up a bit of unification of the mind, or samadhi, and then the vipassana comes later. The major difference between samadhi and vipassana is that in samadhi, one is choosing an object of meditation and opening the mind so that mind or awareness is completely filled up with that one object. And then whatever other phenomenon, whether it be a touch or a sound or a thought, whatever else comes along, when we're aiming for samadhi, we ignore those other things. So part of the method of samadhi is having the ability to intentionally ignore some things in order to be open to other things. This is why practicing the 8 precepts with the additional precepts for sense restraint, part of the aspect of sense restraint is things that are triggering for greed or excitement. You just ignore them. Huh? Then when a person is practicing for vipassana, which we may come to later, the mind or awareness is open and receptive to the diversity of the different touches or contact or perception, or the different phenomena that can come into awareness moment by moment. Ideally, if one has really got it together, it becomes a kind of a momentary samadhi. So each phenomena that arises, the awareness is fully open and taken up to fully directly experience that phenomena. And then when it passes, it's dropped and the mind is available for the next one. But in either case, you have what's called ekagata, which is sometimes translated as one-pointedness, or you could call it unification of the mind. So in samadhi, when you're practicing for shamatha, you're choosing one object, and the mind is resting in awareness on the one object with a unified mind, unified around that one object. When you practice vipassana, the mind is not distracted or shallow skating on the surface of things, but still the mind is still like fully present and unified around the experience. It's just that the experience is constantly changing. So that's kind of the difference there. I apologize, but I'm going to have to pause this for another 2 minutes. Okay, coming to meditation. Letting go of whatever thoughts or excitement we brought with us to this moment. Letting go of our worries and memories about yesterday, our hopes and plans about tomorrow, and making the first resolution or determination that during this sit, we shall try to be in the present moment. Coming to an upright and balanced posture, arranging the arms and legs and back in a way that's stable and as comfortable as possible, so that it's possible to sit without needing to shift the posture. Taking a couple of deep, slow breaths to set the posture so the breath flows nicely. And without letting go of that upright and balanced posture, relaxing the body as much as possible. There's just enough energy to stay upright and balanced. The face is soft and relaxed. The shoulders are relaxed. The belly is relaxed. The hands are just resting on the lap or the knees. The seat is pressing on the cushion, and the legs and feet are resting on the ground or on the cushion or on the chair. To help in staying in the present moment, if the mind wanders off, come back to the body first. The body will bring you back to the present moment. and within the body. There is the rise and fall of the breath, the movement of the body with the breath rising and falling, the movement of the air element. Connecting with breath. Connecting full awareness with breath. And remaining with breath. Anything else coming into awareness? Just leave it alone. Letting awareness be settled on the breath. Dear friends, I want to speak with you today about the theme or the idea I had for this morning's program. And that is reflecting about the healing, skillful, and beneficial perceptions that can be cultivated, that can be developed as part of this path of practice. This teaching is given in several suttas in the Anguttara Nikaya. I think I found 6 different suttas about perceptions that can be cultivated and contemplated that will be for your benefit, for your welfare, and for your success on the path if you do that cultivation. The most famous sutta is the one called Girimananda, which is about 10 perceptions. Girimananda is a bhikkhu. We don't know very much about him because in the entire Pali Canon, he only appears one time in this one sutta. He was extremely ill, and his illness was getting worse and not better. He was suffering a lot with bodily pain. And the Buddha's disciple, Ananda, knew that Girimananda was ill, and he went to the Buddha and said, Venerable Sir, it would be good out of compassion if you would visit this bhikkhu Girimananda. And the Buddha answered by inviting bhikkhu Ananda, to go to Girimananda and teach him these 10 perceptions. And with the prediction that with these 10 perceptions, his severe illness might be allayed, might be healed. In Buddhist countries, the Girimananda then becomes a very, very popular sutta as one of the ones that's given in the treatment of illness. So if somebody's very ill, the family will get a recording of Girimananda, or they'll invite some monks to come over to the hospital or to the house and to recite the Girimananda Sutta for that person in hopes that it will help them to get better. We definitely feel that it's possible with the mind to cause the body to become sick. And it's possible with the mind to have some impact on physical illness. At the same time, we understand that in this being born in the realm as the type of being that has a body made of flesh and blood, that the having arisen, this body must cease, and this flesh and blood body that we have is subject to old age, sickness, and death. So we are not predicting, and nowhere is it predicted that by doing magical recitations or chanting that a person, a human being, is able to escape old age, sickness, and death. That's not the point. But it's also true that it can happen that the amount of physical suffering one experiences can be very much affected by mental training. And also the course of a disease can sometimes be perhaps temporarily deferred by means of meditation or practices or spiritual practices. Before talking in more detail about these 10 skillful perceptions, I want to just speak to you about what perception is. Perception is called sanya in the interesting. S-A-N-Y, long A. Sanya is perception. Perception itself is naturally pure and simple. It would be like if I have my eyes open now, there's a lot of trees, I see green. So I have the perception of green. It's just that simple. Or the perception of blue when looking at the sky, or today the sky is gray. So if I look at the sky, there's the perception of gray. There's a very strong connection between perception and consciousness, or vijnana. Vijnana is the knowing faculty, which is like putting a light on our experience so that we are consciously aware of having that experience. So a person whose consciousness is distracted, you could suppose I'm worrying about my problems, so my consciousness is distracted, but my eyes are still open, and there could be a perception of green, but it's not very clear, and it's not known to me. If you ask me later what color were the trees, I could guess, but I don't remember what they were, because I didn't remember them. I didn't set them in my mind. I didn't have the mindful awareness of them, even though at some kind of subliminal level, there could be a perception of the gray sky and the green trees. So this is an aspect of how the khandhas of mentality come together. The 5 khandhas are the form, which is the material base of everything, including this body. And then there's the feeling when some experience arises for us, whether it be because of a contact through the 5 senses, or whether it because of some mental contact. There is pleasant or unpleasant or neutral response that can come up even at the conscious level and also at a subliminal level. So we start to feel happy or pleased about something, or we start to like it, even so quickly before we even are consciously aware of it. The feeling comes up. They say that the feeling is the first thing that comes up, and that the perception comes right after that, or sometimes they come up both together, or they're so closely connected to each other. So then if I like the color green, like if green is my favorite color, then when the image of the tree strikes the eye, the feeling initially might be like neutral, and then the perception of green comes in. This is all happening within much less than 1 second. And because I have the underlying tendency of greed, which likes green, then the pleasant feeling arises with the green trees. And I'm saying, green. So, and then the perception could even become more clarified or more fully illuminated by consciousness, that knowing factor, because I enjoy looking at green. And so then I really gaze at the green and really take in just the whole experience of green, and with that is coming that pleasant feeling. So in that way, there's a kind of a synergy or a strengthening that's happening by the interaction of these mental factors. So far, I've just mentioned feeling and perception and consciousness as 3 factors that are coming together to cause perception to become more clear. When a person with this perception idea there is a natural way that our mind experiences perception. It kind of puts things into chunks. And so like green is one chunk, and blue is another chunk, and yellow is another chunk. So I could perceive green, I could perceive blue-green, I could perceive blue, or if I have a trained perception that I have really studied colors, let's say, suppose I'm an artist or an interior decorator, or I've got a really good eye for colors. Some people can do this. They can see a particular shade of a color, and then they could go to the hardware store and look at the strips they have of different colors and pick out a color that matches the color that they saw at home and purchase the right color of paint to bring home, and it will be matching, because they have this ability to perceive subtle gradations of color and to remember them. But nevertheless, even if you can make many distinctions, still there are distinctions that are made, that we do perceive things into chunks. This becomes important because the chunks are also divided in time. So if I am paying attention to one thing, it takes a certain amount of moments for awareness to shift from that thing to something else. And because of the amount of time it takes to shift into grasping onto subjects, onto the objects that we're experiencing, that means that we don't experience all of them. We experience some of them. So if I'm in a very a complicated situation. Let's suppose if I'm driving to work and talking on the telephone, and there's the traffic situation is challenging. Let's say it's raining and I have to be very careful to drive safely because I don't want to skid or have an accident, and so I'm putting a lot of attention into driving safely, even though I'm talking on the telephone. I might not notice, and then you could say, well, what color was the car in front of you? And you might not be able to say what color the car was because you didn't connect with it long enough or clearly enough, because the mind was fully taken up with that other object of perception. We do this intentionally, like I mentioned in meditation. If one is meditating on the breath and the mind is fully absorbed into the breath, then some other things might be impinging on the senses that you actually are not noticing if you're absorbed into samadhi with awareness on the breath or awareness on a meditation object. When we are developing vipassana to try to understand how this mind and body works, then we cultivate having a very open awareness, which is just focusing on the operation of this mind and body. And then in that way, we could be able to perceive, many moments and perceive with clarity what's happening, what's going on with this mind and body. But you might not be able to do that at the same time while you're driving to work and talking on the telephone during a rainstorm, because you don't have enough bandwidth to have that such a full inner awareness at the same time as focusing on those external things. It's said that the danger of perception is concepts, and in particular concepts that are based on, affected by greed, anger, and ignorance or delusion. So if I have some kind of, I'll take a negative association with green, on some occasion in the past, I was lost in the forest and I was so frightened, and I had a really terrible, horrible, traumatic experience in the forest, and I was looking at those green trees and crying because I was so sad and upset because of being lost. And for somehow this traumatic experience with trees and green has gotten fixed into my psychology. And so then when I look up and see the green, I feel frightened. Or I may feel, the tree is dangerous. The overhanging limb might break and damage the car. Or some this would be an example of a proliferation of some kind of imaginary story that has evolved because some association has gotten embedded in like an underlying, within the underlying tendency of aversion, some aversion towards, in this case, the phenomenon of green, because of some previous experience that was painful, and that it's gotten locked up to some extent. And then to the extent that I've not emerged from my hatred of green, or not emerged from my fear of green, then when I see green, then the mind starts spinning and starts fabricating stories about what the danger could be from green. In our world, we are constantly and continuously bombarded with concepts, and the concepts that are very closely connected with volitional formation, or sankhara. So the sankhara is the next one of the five khandhas. There's the body, the form, the feeling, unpleasant feeling, the perception, green, and then the volitional formation is danger, danger. I need to protect myself from this green thing. And so then concepts and volitional formations are connected because the concepts are like a sort of a shorthand for the realities that are in our life. And so it tells us what we need to do about it. This whole process is actually a process leading to actions, which in the normal course of life, beings that are alive do what they need to do in order to continue with their existence. So the body is breathing so that I can continue to live. And when the meal is offered, I shall eat the food in order to continue to live. When the dangerous tree limb is dangling over the car, I shall move the car in order to still have a car available so that I can continue to live. The concepts get formulated up into abstract ideas, like the idea of the city or the idea of the country. They get wound up into abstract ideas, like the idea of cruelty, or the idea of kindness, the idea of that which is skillful or that which is unskillful. These are all concepts. Many of the concepts, well, all of the concepts that we have at some kind of level are helpful concepts because they are concepts that help us to continue to survive and to live another day. Some concepts are deeply diluted and may cause us to waste energy and to spin around in a way that's useless because of delusion. So actually, like the color green is not really dangerous. So if I have got a fixation that the color green is dangerous, or I hate green because green is dangerous, that is not really doing anything productive. At one time, there's a reason why that association came up, but it's not a skillful concept. It's a waste of a concept. And just the same way, the concepts related to me and mine in our Buddhist teaching are all basically a big waste, because, you know, at one time, when we were little, when we didn't know any better, we learned how to grab what we need and to put it in our mouth, and then it's mine. And then we come to this identification, which then becomes proliferated as a concept, and then we come to think, oh, this is my city. I know my city from end to end. I have friends all over the city. I'm proud of my city. And then that identification is really adding almost nothing to being able to be a good citizen of my city, or to be skillful in connection to the city. And it has the danger of leading to a great deal of harm if we say that, my city is good and the other city is bad. This happened to me once when I was much younger. I lived in Washington, D.C., and we had a really terrible football team. Our team the Washington Redskins never won a game. But then somehow, with good coaching, or somehow, the team was getting better and better. And they had a group of, some of the players were comparatively small. They were called the Smurfs, and the other ones were big, and we had a great team. And I was in Washington at the minute when Washington won the Super Bowl. And it was such an unbelievable experience that the whole city, including all the different, the blacks and the whites and the Hispanics and the immigrants and the high powerful bureaucrats and the weak laborers, and everybody all together was happy because it's like our city had beaten the other city. And so this is I guess you could say this would demonstrate how at some kind of a practical level, that the identification like my city or our city might be beneficial, because it could cause you, out of a feeling of loyalty, to help the other citizens of your city, and to do good works, to do charity and so forth like that, and to obey the rules of your city because you feel some kind of identification with it. So to that extent, it's skillful. But to the extent that it's a waste of energy, a waste of time, not leading to liberation, not leading away from rebirth, not leading to the destruction of the asavas, not doing really anything for your spiritual progress, to that extent, that this identification like my city it's not just a concept that's got some practical benefit. It's also a concept that's a danger to our practice, a danger to our spiritual progress. And then one can realize what a burden that diluted concept is, if you just could get up in the morning and look around and say, well, it's not my city. And I'm not sure you can feel, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about keeping up my city or taking care, upholding. I'm not trying to uphold my city because it's not my city. I can put that burden down. A part of the experience that we may have in developing perceptions will be to use mindfulness and some kind of idea about which way we would like to be heading in our practice, and understand that we can let go of the burden of conceptual proliferation with respect to those useless, ignorant perceptions that are not really helping us at all. And especially letting go of those useless perceptions that are actively harmful. So when we got the perception about beauty, with the distorted perception that being with something beautiful or to be beautiful oneself is a cause of happiness, and that this is our refuge. And then we try to seek out and get more and more beauty because we think that this is where happiness comes from. That kind of a deluded perception is actively undermining, hurting. It's like eating poison to be grasping onto and feeding that kind of a harmful perception. Or when we have perception based on aversion, and saying, you know, I hate this, then those kind of perceptions are just taking us farther and farther away from being able to see reality accurately as it is. That kind of perception is rooted in hatred for aversion, rooted in greed for pleasure. And when we see the danger, one of us, I've had some conversations recently in our community, and we have a wonderful metaphor, which is about feeding the cat. So there's a cat in the neighborhood, which it belongs to a neighbor, but the neighbor doesn't take care of that cat, so the cat is starving. And one of our community began to feed that cat. And when we feed the cat comes at the time when we usually feed the cat. The cat is always there, walking back and forth and purring and being very friendly. It always comes when it's the time that they expect to be fed. And if we don't feed the cat, it will take the cat like quite a few days to stop coming around, because it keeps hoping. So it keeps coming and coming and coming, looking for some food. And the same way, the very first time that our resident fed the cat, it only took that cat a minute to learn that this was a place where there was food. And they learned it so quickly. And then they kept coming and coming and coming to look and see, is there going to be some more food? And then they quickly and very efficiently learned to, what time and when and where to come to get the food. And then with pain and difficulty, slowly they give up that habit if the food stopped coming. But then if the food starts again, it just takes them no time at all to quickly learn, oh, food is back. Let me come back there and come back again and again. So this is the same way it is. When you have perceptions that are proliferating up into concepts based on greed and aversion, it's just like feeding the cat. And so if you want to live and have hatred to be a big part of your life, then you may cultivate the perception of things that are dangerous to you, hateful to you, unfair to you, not what you want, not what should be. And then you have that thought over and again, like, oh, he beat me, he hurt me, he despised me, he taunted me. People who have thoughts like that never come to peace because they fed the cat. And that cat of hatred comes very quickly and easily and goes away slowly and with difficulty. So for that reason, it's better if you don't even feed that cat of hatred even once. But then the perceptions of non-hatred can be supportive of peace, supportive of tranquility. And in this way, we know that especially along our path of practice, in everyday life, in all the postures of life, we can't avoid having a lot of perceptions and a lot of concepts. I needed to use a lot of concepts to decide what to speak with you about this morning. We had to use a lot of concepts to decide how the group of bhikkhunis who went over to the Cambodian temple for the Chumben festival today, how they're going to get there, and how they're going to come back here in time. This is the new moon day, so we're going to have the Uposatha observance with the recitation of the Bhikkhunis Patimokkha. That's part of our ceremony. So how will they get back in time? Who's reciting the Patimokkha? Is it going to be done in Pali or English? We have to make all these decisions. These are all, concepts. So we use concepts in every day. And we can also use concepts which are beneficial, which lead the mind towards the direct, accurate, and truthful experience of reality as it really is. So when the Buddha said, we recited it this morning, Sabbe Sankara Anicchati, all conditioned things are impermanent. When it's stated that way in words, that's a concept. When we have planted that concept in our mental continuum, and we are observing the objects coming into our awareness, we might experience the changes with the breathing in and breathing out, the rise and fall of the breath. We might notice how it's changing. And if the mind is still sort of inclining towards concepts, we might even label it, oh, it's changing. Or we might even think about it. Oh, is it changing or not? Oh, yes, I can agree, it's changing. But then because of that, you could say that conceptual framework, which is included in the idea of impermanence, then at other times, without the conceptual proliferation being activated at all, one may be just directly experience impermanence. And that direct experience of impermanence is something which is very fruitful and beneficial in conditioning the mind in a helpful way, helpful for our spiritual practice. In the following talk that's going to happen after lunch, I'm going to be speaking more about these helpful perceptions which do include concepts, but when you use those helpful concepts, you can see how they support letting go of the gross hindrances or the gross opposites or pollutions or distractions that can plague us and cause us to be unsettled, unhappy, and also not well connected to reality. So we look at the type of perceptions that will support calmness, clarity, and connection to reality as it actually is. So this will be the conversation that we'll have this afternoon. It's now 10:45, and I'm going to pause us right now.